I haven't seen the reveal video yet of this year's game.
Yeah.
I heard there was a couple things that changed though.
I don't fully know what, because I was being parts. But I did see that they moved where the balls are put at the beginning of the game, which definitely makes it more difficult for teams to try to get all of the balls in auto. With their, now you're going to have to go over the rendezvous bump.
Oh.
I don't know what the technical
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So they used to be around the perimeter.
Yeah, they
Switch.
did. Yeah, and a lot of teams were, not a lot of teams, some teams were able to grab them off of that and
Yeah,
shoot them in.
it's not the case anymore.
No,
Yeah.
got to pull that bump.
I've heard that climbing might not really be a thing anymore.
Yeah, climbing's going to be weird with the fact that none of the challenges for the at-home event involve climbing, which is really weird. So we'll see how that ends up playing out with that. I don't know, it's kind of an interesting choice.
That's really interesting because leading up to this point, I was working on a climber. We're looking at all sorts of interesting ways to climb. A grappling hook seemed like it was pretty cool, but I mean, if that's not even worth approaching, we should probably be approaching different solutions to building our robot with the limited amount of time we have.
Instead of sitting here,
Yeah.
talking about life.
And
But here we are,
there's stuff. I mean, COVID's changed a lot too. I mean, I'm not sure how these games are actually going to be any different.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting of when they're actually going to get around to doing competitions, when those end up getting kicked back up and going.
Yeah.
Who knows when that's going to be?
Yeah.
If this year, or next year, or whatever.
I mean, they called it infinite replay for a reason, so we might be stuck there for a while. So as far as a drivetrain, from what you've seen last year and what I've seen last year and this year, what do you think would be our best option for a drivetrain?
So like last year, I was on a team, 4239, and we did not do pneumatic wheels, and we struggled to get over the, well, we didn't really struggle, it was just harder to get over through the rendezvous point. So I think we made the right move here with going with 6-inch pneumatics instead, just to make it very easy. You can just go as fast as you want, not worry about damaging anything. Just right over and through the rendezvous point to go and end up in scoring. And the nice thing about the robot we're building is we don't even have to go through the rendezvous point if we want, because we can go under the trench, which will make it really easy to less defense and be able to go score.
The trench run will definitely be easier this year. If there's no climbing, we don't have to worry about some sort of high and mighty apparatus to lift us up anymore.
Yeah, and also I haven't looked at any of the challenges. I heard there was like some shooting ones and there's some driving ones. Being a driver formerly, I'm kind of curious to check into what the driving ones are a little bit and just kind of see what those are about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a weird take, but I mean, with the weird times when it all makes sense.
Yeah. As far as gameplay goes, do you really see it being any different this year?
It's going to be interesting, especially they made it a little easier to get the rank point off of shooting balls, and they changed it, which I don't know how major this is going to be, but they changed it to now you can only hold 14 balls behind your alliance wall instead of 15. It's kind of a weird choice, just because of the fact of it's only one. They decreased it by one. But it's going to definitely be interesting to see how that affects gameplay with 2 more balls possibly being in play.
Right, for sure. I know that there's there were some issues last year with some robots accidentally picking up too many balls or dropping very many balls. Do you think, I'm not sure if you've seen if there's any changes in the rules, but do you think that such a rule would be implemented better if there was some sort of restriction or higher penalties to carrying more than 5 balls?
I mean, the penalties right now are already pretty high. If I remember right, it's a tech foul, I'm pretty sure,
so,
if I remember
yeah.
right. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a thing to look out for.
We'll be back with you after this short ad break.
Last year, pretty much the name of the game was just outshoot your opponent. It seems like the higher point goal in the back was a nice party trick to do, but I have seen also a lot of teams that won just from the sheer amount of points going into the standard 2-point.
Yeah, and for the most part with that, most teams are only aiming for a big 2-point hole, and if they end up hitting the back one to 3, it's an extra bonus point. There are some teams that have it dialed into the point where they can hit the middle every time. But for the most part, you can just hit the 2. I mean, you're sitting pretty well with points and just trying to make as many runs and shoot as many balls as possible, which will also be interesting with that to see how the Wheel of Fortune, also known as the control panel, is used with the making it easier to get the rank point with how many balls you have to score. Less cycles, faster can happen. See if the teams want to prioritize that, even though we didn't this year.
Yeah, it would be more fun to actually see it in action. I rarely saw it last year at all.
Yeah, it was very rare. I mean, we only got it through 2 to 3 weeks of competitions before it all got shut down. And usually trends are that teams get better later in the year, and you see that more often. But it wasn't a really hard and rare rank point to see. I don't even know if we saw it at the competition that we went to. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how much more of that is used and plays into stuff.
Definitely. I hope that makes up for the potential lack of an end game, as end games are usually the most exciting aspect. Climbing or something crazy, but now we get to watch a wheel spin, which might be a little bit better than not seeing it spin at all.
I mean, hey, if you like get in a trance and watch it spin around, I mean, that might be what they're trying to do here.
I mean, Wheel of Fortune is one of the most popular game shows out there. I mean, they might be onto something here. I guess we just have to find out.
I mean, I'm really surprised I didn't see a name change to the Wheel of Fortune, honestly. Like, there's probably some copyright problems that would be with their trademark. But I mean, shoot, have freaking Vanna White and I don't know what the other dude's name. What's the dude's name for Wheel of Fortune? Anyone know?
I don't know.
No, it's Pat Sajak.
Is it Pat Sajak?
And Vanna
I
White.
was gonna say Alex Trebek. That's
no, he's dead.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, like, honestly, get them on the freaking reel there. We got, what's his
Slapping
name?
away there on the side.
Pressing some things as we go. I mean, literally, like, how hard would that be? And like, come on, guys, like, just get freaking Pat Sajak and Vanna White.
Honestly, we should be in charge.
Yeah. I mean, also, we really have to reach out to our friends at Starbucks, too. They really should, be patting in some dollars here. They're keeping us all awake with that great coffee.
I don't drink coffee.
I don't either. But I mean, hey, some people do, and that's a life choice.
Well, coffee is a big thing with Robot 3 days, unless you don't drink coffee at all. How have you been coping with the lack of sleep?
I don't know, man. We're not there yet. We're about to get there.
Right.
This is going to be a rough night, I think, because, like, we're probably going to be here a while, because I feel like we're a little bit behind.
Yeah, we definitely get that harvester done.
Yeah, it's
Some
called an
people.
intake, though.
No, harvester.
No,
Harvesters. Can't even say it anymore.
it's okay.
And you get to sleep.
Yeah.
You know how I am. I'm just constantly crying. I'm just very emotional at night. So as far as strategy goes, honestly this year it just seems like with any robot in 3-day build or pretty much any team looking to build a robot this year, we have lots of example material to work off of. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel if the wheel already spins.
Exactly. And it's going to be really interesting to see how teams use other teams. I mean, that already opened up with some teams being more public with their builds last year because of No Bag Day and the fact there was no bag day. That really opened up some teams to just exploring more options and taking ideas and building off of them. And now you have a full year you can go off of.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting. With robots that actually did compete in 3 weeks of competition.
Yeah.
So it's really going to be interesting to see how that is used. I know there's some minor changes to the game, but for the most part, everything is basically the same.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to see how teams use that to better themselves and make it easier to build what they're looking at and have more time to really process the game and think about it.
Definitely. There'll be more efficient ways to get some stuff done, especially with those teams that actually got to try to drive a robot. Some didn't even get an opportunity to do anything.
Yeah, and I mean, if you count week zeros, because you could technically count week zero, you could have 4 weeks of competition. So say a team got 2 or maybe 3 even competitions in. I mean, I know some teams didn't get to compete at all, but that's really very beneficial for them to be able to drive around and do some of these challenges that were presented this year.
For sure. Some of those teams that actually got to try a bit and work out the kinks on their robot last year, they have all year, because with no bag tag, you have all year to improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Yeah, and I mean, many teams I bet worked a little bit during the summer possibly with COVID guidelines. When it was a little less, or a little more tame. So I mean, there could be very finished robots that just need very minor tweaks and improvements, and they're ready to do some of the challenges that First has put out this year.
And I guess that kind of comes down to, in a sense, Robot in 3 days is sort of an inspirational platform where you have 3 days, and that way teams still just trying to figure out what they're going to do can see they have example material like what we've been looking at all year. So what do you think the impact, as far as the purpose of Robot in 3 days this year?
I think it was nice for teams like us because we could build off of what we had last year, and we kind of knew already coming into this what the game was going to be. So I feel like that made us be able to really develop our ideas more and kind of process through, and just come in knowing what we for the most part want to do and quickly talk through it with the team and then get going. So I think it's going to be beneficial to teams because now we can present more finished and more complex designs than we usually would be able to with literally knowing the game and then saying, okay, go build it. Now we've had a little bit of time this off season to look it over.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be very beneficial for teams, and for us it was.
Yeah, for sure. So, as far as strategy goes, what haven't we covered? I mean, really, the best robots that we saw last year had very similar characteristics. We had revolver-style hoppers, a lot of rollers. We did see some beaver tails. I have also seen some beaver tails not work so well, so there's a little bit of grain truth in there. But as far as really good robot designs, they sort of fall into a very similar structure.
Yeah, for the most part they do. Another thing that people have found success with would be sequencing the balls in line instead of a hopper. I have seen some teams that were very successful with that as well. They both end up presenting their own challenges when you're designing and going through it. Hoppers like to jam, the balls are really sticky and like to stick to each other. And when you put them in a belt, you have to sort them before you get in it to get that in the nice line. So they both have their own challenges with them. So it's very interesting to see how designs have kind of morphed into basically almost kind of two separate strategies with how to deal with the balls and get them to a shooter.
Well, I can't hear anything else, to be honest. That's kind of the end. What are you doing?
Are we doing this or are we just clapping? I clap like this, by the way.